Alright you guys, and welcome back to a brand new sculpting video. And this week I thought, what if I take one of the most popular characters known for his shreds and insane physique and make him the complete opposite, which is why this week I'm gonna be making a fat Baki. And as usual with all those big and heavy builds, and this one being especially heavy, I'ma start out by giving him a skeleton and organ meats made out of aluminium foil and wire. Once I got the lower body bulked up, I can get my hands on some clay, which I'll be using to cover his aluminum muscles in a thick layer of super sculpty fat, trying to achieve a natural looking fat distribution. With his legs looking good, it's on to one of the most important features of the human body, butt cheeks. Once they're blended in, I'll be having a hard time getting my hands off them again. Using all my willpower, I eventually made it down to the kneecap, and with my two patellas in place, I can set my lower body aside for now and get started working on the belly. Said belly starts out as an aluminium ball. Well, it's actually more of a potato shape, which first gets covered in an initial layer of clay, and I'll then bulk up certain areas. With a nice wobbly belly done, I can get started working on the titties. Now, I never could have imagined you'd catch me saying something like that, but the breasts are too big. Damn, it really hurts what society does to a man. Anyways, with me clearly not being myself here, I started removing big chunks of his voluminous tits, turning what used to be at least a double D down to an average C. But in the end, less size for a better shape is still a decent trade-off, I guess. Anyways, while still trying to justify what I just did, I added his belly button as well as a beautiful fat fold below each C. And since there's no chest complete without two nipples, I added them. And with that, the torso is done, so onto the arms. And with it being a reoccurring theme on the channel, I'll once again turn a slightly bent wiener into an arm. And since this should still represent Baki with his huge arms and biceps, I made sure his upper arm was a bit thicker. And another recurring theme of the channel, me with two balls in my hands, although this time unusually big. I'll start to make two hands with 5 thingies each, bending them into different positions since they both will be holding something. With his right hand complete, only his left is left. And since I don't want to leave left behind left, where's left headed? Dude, those were way too many lefts, and with the performances of my last few videos I can't take another L. Anyways, I'm getting carried away here, so I'd rather just add the hands to the arms. Once they are merged, I can add them to the rest of the body. And with them blended in, I'll get started working on the head. Now, Baki's usually mogging us all with his jawline. Not this one though, since he's got more of a chubby moon face. Any grandmother would fall in love with immediately. Same as his butt, his face will receive a set of two lovely cheeks, as well as two eyes, giving him the ability to see his food clearly. And you can't forget about the rounded bushy eyebrows, of course. And that's the head done, which means I can now place it on the pre-made neck dent, connecting it through one big fold. And since Baki's pretty bald at this point, and I refuse to sculpting ears, I can chop up some hair, which I actually won't be using anyways, since I figured the much stickier cosplay will give me an easier time sticking each lump of hair to the head. And although I did like him looking like someone who'd discovered the photoelectric effect, I had to stick with the reference and added some more hair on the top. And now we're back to the pants, I guess, which at this point do not really exist yet. And although I'm definitely not disinclined to sculpting my sculptures nude, I feel like if I ever want to get a shot at my channel getting monetized, I better throw on some clothes. Just for the sculptures, of course. I'll continue to sculpt naked. I can then get out my roller, which should make me way more attractive to women, which I'll use to roll out the iconic white waistband for his pants. With the waistband blended in, it's time for a base. And since I want him to be standing on a rocky base, I'll be using some Adam-inspired texturing tools. Some rocks. And after applying the texture carefully, we're on to another favorite of mine, the feet. Hey, at least pretend that that wasn't obvious. And after making a second one, whoa. Alright, that got a little too freaky. Alright, I better place them on the base now, where I can then poke his legs in place, and that's the sculpting pretty much done. So now it's time to make the earlier mentioned snacks. First try, baby. Never mind. Anyways, I'll be using some UV resin in order to make a glass. And I'm gonna have to say this worked out surprisingly well for a first try. This time for real. Anyways, after some sanding, I'm satisfied with the glass. I'll fill the glass later, but first, I gotta make a donut. And for the glazing on top, I'll finally get a chance to use some of my liquid clay. And once Baki and the donut came out of the oven, it's time for painting, baby. So I'll start out by covering Baki in a not quite white skin color. Following that by priming his hair brown. And since with just one layer of white paint he's still pretty dead and left underwater looking, so I'm gonna go over the whole body again before priming his pants red. His waistband will receive a white beigey treatment. And now we're on to the most important painting step, being adding a wash to all the wrinkles and folds on his body. And after intensely tickling his belly button, I'll work my way down to his legs and feet. And with the wash completed, he's now unintentionally the most horrifying thing I've ever made. I'll go ahead and quickly apply a dry brush using the sponge and pliers method. I can then go ahead and paint his brows brown and his eyes white, as well as add the necessary iris and pupil to each eye. And that's Baki done, so now it's time to paint the aforementioned donut. Now, I also tried using colored clay, but this one looks like it got the American Pie treatment, so I'd rather use the other one. Now, with the donut not looking extremely disgusting, I'll grab my self-made glass and make him a drink. Now, it was at this point that I realized that I also could have just used my mixing cup as a glass, but that would be the easy way and mama raised no bitch. I also made a straw off camera, which I'll be placing in my glass. And with the UV resin in hand, I'll add some more dimension to his eyes. And while feeling like an ophthalmologist for the first time, I can cure my resin as well as glue the two body parts together. And adding the donut is gonna be the final touch. Alright, thank you guys for watching. Let me know down below which character I should make a fat version of next, or if I should make a fat character extremely muscular. Leave a like for every donut you ate this week, I guess. And please subscribe, baby. So I'll catch you in the next one. And I love y'all. Bye.